Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about something which has been frustrating me for the past few weeks that I haven't really been able to talk about anywhere else, and that is of course about the new Astro Bot game which is coming this September to PlayStation 5. Now, before I say anything about this game and my thoughts about it, I am excited for this game. I absolutely loved Astro's Playroom when it came pre-installed on the PlayStation 5. It's one of my favorite platformers and games, period. I thought it was just like an amazing time, so full of charm, such a love letter to PlayStation in general. Team Asobi clearly showed how talented they were with this game. And so, ever since I played Astro's Playroom, I have been looking forward to what their next game would be, alongside the other PlayStation studios who have yet to release a new game on the PS5. Including studios like Bluepoint, Bend Studio, Sucker Punch. But even among those, Team Asobi was the one I've pretty much been looking forward to the most. And let me say it, I do think that Astro Bot will be a good game. As I said, I loved Astro's Playroom, and everything I've seen in the trailer, it all looks very good. And I think the game will be extremely high quality. That's not what I want to talk about. I don't really want to talk about if I think the game is going to be good, because I know it's going to be good. I want to talk about the situation surrounding this and what specifically frustrates me about this game, about modern Sony and modern AAA game development, and sort of why this game is the pinnacle of being too safe in an industry where it takes so long to get new games. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, of course, Astro Bot is going to be another 3D platformer. The thing that sort of rubs me the wrong way about how they're going about this new platformer is that it really does seem like the same sort of thing again. And what do I mean by that? We are getting another 3D platformer in the Astro Bot universe, and again, it's all about just PlayStation cameos and seeing all of these bots with the PlayStation characters and locations, and it really does seem like just a bigger version of Astro's Playroom. And again, Astro's Playroom was amazing, so yes, this game is going to be fun. However, I'd be lying if I said this was not disappointing by the fact that it really is just a redoing of Astro's Playroom, just longer and a full-priced game this time instead of a pre-installed sort of tech demo. And this game is taking almost 4 years to come out. Astro's Playroom launched with the PS5 in November of 2020, and this game is coming out in September of 2024. So nearly 4 years between games, and this is basically just a full version of Astro's Playroom. And that is sort of frustrating because Astro as a character, and we all realized this when we played Astro's Playroom, and some of us even before that in games like the Playroom VR or Astro Bot Rescue Mission, is that this character has so much charm to him, has so much potential, and to see it just being the same sort of thing again for the 4th time in total is kind of frustrating. And the thing about it is that everyone seems to just be in agreement that this is an amazing direction for Sony to be going in, because we so rarely get these kind of games. I remember 2023, I was one of the only people saying that that was a horrible year for Sony. They released only one AAA game all of last year, and that was Spider-Man 2, which was an open world, superhero licensed action game, cinematic action game, which is what pretty much all Sony has been doing for like the past generation and a half. And I liked Spider-Man 2, I liked it a lot. I thought it had a lot of problems, but I enjoyed it probably more than most other people did, if I'm being honest. But even before that, in 2022, we got God of War Ragnarok, we got Horizon Forbidden West, and we got a remake of The Last of Us Part 1, a remaster of Uncharted 4 and Uncharted The Lost Legacy, and we got Gran Turismo 7. So obviously the games are not all alike, there are big differences between them, but you're seeing the same sort of stereotypical Sony vibe in just about everything they've been releasing since 2021. Let's be clear, the last State of Play was the first time we've gotten a major first-party game announcement, that being Astro Bot, since the PlayStation Presents back in 2021. That was the show that showed us Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. In the PlayStation Showcase in 2023, we didn't really get any news about major Sony IP. Yes, we got some new announcements like Concord and Fair Games, which, I mean, you already have your opinion about that if you're watching this. But the big announcement from that showcase was not even a new game, it was just showing Spider-Man 2 gameplay. So we haven't gotten an announcement of a major Sony IP, like, you know, a new Ghost of Tsushima, or like any new sequel or IP from one of their major studios like Naughty Dog. Astro Bot, from this last State of Play, was pretty much the first new Sony first-party major game we've seen in 3 years. And so it's understandable why so many people saw this and saw that, oh, it's Team Asobi again, we're getting Astro, and they just loved it. Because it's like, the bar has been set so low for what to expect at all these presentations, which is way more frustrating than anything I'm about to talk about in this video. But yeah, I understand why people were so excited, because it's like a breath of fresh air to be getting something to be genuinely charmed by and excited about. But when I watched it, I just couldn't help but be disappointed that we're getting the same thing again. And so I keep saying that, and what do I mean by the same thing again? What do I wish we had gotten instead of just another 3D platformer? Well, I'll tell you what I wanted. I would have wanted an Astro Bot game with this character in any other genre than a 3D platformer. Now, no, that does not mean I wanted another cinematic third-person action shooter game like God of War and Horizon. No, that is not what I mean. I mean, I would want a game like a party game or a racing game. Maybe even a 2D platformer. That could have been cool. I just wanted something to really diversify the sort of games that we're playing on PS5. Because let's face it, pretty much the only games Sony has been putting out are either their live service games or their stereotypical third-person action games that people are fed up with, both of those types of games. And yet, Astro Bot comes along, and this is another single-player game, you know, 12 to 15 hours, which I don't have a problem with that length. I'm just saying, it is another single-player game. You're going to be playing this game by yourself on your console, you know, in front of your TV, alone in your room. And, you know, I like those kinds of games. Most of the games I play are single player. You know, they're usually JRPGs and longer games like that, but, you know, I like single player games as well. Most of the games I play are single player. But the thing is, Sony is a first party company. They make the console and they determine, you know, what kind of games get put on it. And if there's ever a drought of a certain type of game on a console, it's kind of up to the console manufacturer to make up for that. And the drought of type of games I'm talking about here are party games, couch co-op games. If you go on Google and look up party games on PS5, the selection you have to pick from is abysmal. Like, you've got fucking Overcooked All You Can Eat, Jackbox, and like Gang Beasts, and that's kind of it. The selection for party games, you know, the games that when you've got friends over and you're all sitting on the couch in front of your PS5 and then say, hey, what game are we gonna play? There's jack fuck to play on PS5, and this means a lot to me because I do have friends that I like to play games with in the same room. The only games we can play with each other on my PlayStation 5 are fighting games. 1v1 2D fighting games like Guilty Gear and Tekken. And like, yeah, those games can be fun, but when it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna bring my PS5 and we'll play some games and we have to just play those over and over, it's frustrating. You know, you look at the Nintendo Switch as a comparison, and of course, the Nintendo Switch is going to have more party games because that's the kind of console it is. I recognize that the PS5 is a console meant for single-player games, you know, usually more mature games, more cinematic games, and failing that also for more multiplayer online games, you know, like Call of Duty. I recognize that. However, do you know one kind of game that the PS5 is not lacking in? Platformers. We have lots of platformers already on PS5, and that includes exclusives. We got Sackboy within the launch window of the console. We got Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and beyond that, we've got lots of third parties as well. We've got the Crash Insane Trilogy and Crash 4. We've got Spyro Trilogy. We have Rayman. We've even got games like Prince of Persia. You know, there's so many platformers to play on PS5. Yet there's like no party games at all. I mean, yeah, sure, there are some, but they're all just like shovelware bullshit that no one actually wants to play. When you come to situations like that, it really is supposed to be on Sony to make up for that. And I thought that Astro was a perfect, you know, a perfect character and IP to fill in this gaping hole in Sony's game lineup. You know, we haven't gotten like a couch co-op game, and I don't even know how long, because we certainly haven't gotten one during the PS5 era. I would really like it if me and my friends could turn on the PS5 and have a game we can all play and have fun together. And I think Team Asobi, with their vast amounts of talent and the charm and love they can put into their games, would have been just like chef's kiss, the perfect combination to make the first really standout party game on PS5. But no, that's not what we're getting. We're getting another single-player 3D platformer, a type of game and a genre that we have plenty of, instead of something that could be truly new. And I know it seems new to a lot of people because, Astro Bot is different than games like God of War and Horizon, games that people are tired of, but it's not new to me. And so I want to tell you about my ideas for what a party game with Astro could have been like. I think if they made an Astro party game, it would have been amazing. I've seen people, when I talk about this before, they think, oh, no one would have bought an Astro party game because people buy PS5 just to play single-player games. And to that I say, the PlayStation 5 has sold 60 million consoles. You don't think there's a lot of people who own this console and have it in their living room and have like their family members or friends come in and don't have anything to play with them? They just have to either watch them play something, take turns, or they have to play online in some sort of co-op game. And besides, the thing about Astro's Playroom that made it so great was not the fact that it's a 3D platformer or that it has good gameplay. Yes, it was great in those ways, but the thing that made us all remember it is the charm and the love letter to PlayStation that Team Asobi put into it. And I think that could be translated to any genre, not just platformers, but any game Team Asobi makes. They could have fit that amount of love into it, and they would have made an amazing game no matter what genre it is. Sure, they might be better at making platformers because, that's the kind of games they've been making for the past years, but I see no reason why that's what they had to do after another almost 4 years of waiting. So, what do I think a Team Asobi Astro Bot party game would have looked like? Well, obviously, I would have liked to take inspiration from Mario Party, have it on, like, boards and things. And here's the thing. I would love it if it had boards based on PlayStation games. We could have one board based on Midgar from God of War, another board based on Yharnam from Bloodborne. We might have a board based on, like the world of Horizon, like Los Angeles or San Francisco thing. And also a board based off Ratchet and Clank, a sci-fi environment. And a board based off, maybe New York City, like Spider-Man. There's so many PlayStation IP that they could have, adapted boards in a Astro Party game. And, I think they really could have given, like, Mario Party a serious run for its money if they could make a AAA quality game that draws on history from PlayStation. And that goes further than just boards. If they were going to have, like, mini games like Mario Party has, I already came up with lots of ideas. You could take things that people love from other PlayStation games and turn them into mini games in this party game. Like the bamboo cutting challenge from Ghost of Tsushima, yeah, they could be like a contest for that, whoever cuts the most bamboo wins. Or like a God of War, like in those challenges where you throw the axe at the runic symbols, you can make it so like whoever throws their axe at all the symbols in the least amount of time wins. Or you could just have like free-for-all mini games, like give everybody a bow and arrow and have them shoot at each other like in Horizon, and that could have been a mini game. Or we could even bring back mini versions of old and forgotten PlayStation IP, like Twisted Metal. That could be a mini game in this Astro Bot party game, like put everybody in a car and have them all run at each other, and whoever's left standing is the winner. You could have done so much with like this sort of genre of party game that you just really can't do in a 3D platformer. I really do think a party game had limitless potential. I mean, I'll think about it some more. Everybody could be playing as their own little Astro Bot, and you could be able to customize it like how we have costumes in the upcoming Astro Bot game. Like, everybody could be playing as their own little Astro Bot on these boards, and you could customize your bot using clothes from different PlayStation characters. Like, in the Astro Bot game, we're getting, like, a golden Astro Bot costume and a Bloodborne Astro Bot costume. It could be like that, but everybody has their own little Astro Bot that you can dress up and go into this game as your own little customized character. You could give him like the Kratos tattoo, or you could give him, Sly Cooper's hat and his cane, or you could give him like a Clank backpack, things that we saw in like Sackboy: A Big Adventure. It's like things like that I know Team Asobi would have definitely thought of and would have implemented beautifully if they had just tried, and they tried something new rather than the same old thing again but bigger. And if I'm just gonna go on for a little longer, we could have gotten, like a Stellar Blade mini game where it's like, oh, parry these attacks. Whoever parries the most attacks in a row wins. Or we could get like a recreation of any of the challenges in Spider-Man 2. Like do a web swinging challenge as Astro, swinging on your little mini Spider-Man web event, and whoever gets through all the wind gusts in the shortest amount of time or finishes in time is the winner. Like, do you see what I'm saying? There's just so much potential in a party game, and it would just do so much better for the PlayStation console and the PlayStation game lineup, more than I think Astro Bot would. Like, can you imagine if the game I'm talking about was real and they revealed it during the state of play? You know, if they showed a fucking Astro Bot party game is coming to PS5 and that you're going to be able to play it this September, do you know how much more just like that would blow people away? Like, that's just something to think about. Especially if the game had online play in addition to couch co-op. Like, we've all been dreading Sony's multiplayer live service games for the past years. Can we be excited and surprised by Sony again? Like, even if you are excited for Astro Bot and you would like it more than you would any other type of game, this is like the least surprising thing Team Asobi could have revealed. Can we all admit that, at least? And you know, this isn't just exclusive to party games. Party game is like what I would want, but this also applies to pretty much any other game. You know, like if they did like a kart racing game, we could have our version of Bloodborne kart. You know, we could have a track based on Yarnum, or we could have a God of War kart, have a track based on God of War, you know, going through Midgar in the 9 realms. Or we could have a track based off Ratchet and Clank, a track based off Tsushima, a track based on, you know, the cities of Sly Cooper, or New York City, or, you know, like Helldivers. You know, you can make that an area in the game. And these are things that I do not think we are going to see much of, if at all, in Astro Bot. Astro Bot is all about, you know, rescuing cameos, you know, like little sort of bite-sized shots of these old games, but don't get too close, because, you know, they're never coming back. And so I hope you see what I'm trying to say by this. You know, I think Astro Bot is going to do a good job of showing us a lot of charm from these older games, but I just really do not think it's the best they could have done. And I'm sure Team Asobi are not the ones who are like, say, oh, we just want to do the same thing again. I'm sure they're happy to make this game, but I really think the reason it's a 3D platformer instead of anything else is just because of Sony saying, alright, just do what you did again, because that's safe. You know, we know that if we did what we did last time, but bigger, people will be happy and people will buy it. You know, we don't need to take any risk on a new genre. We're not sure if it's going to play off well, but we're going to put our all into it. No, they just wanted to be safe, make a game that they knew they would be good at and they knew would sell well. And, you know, that's fine. You got to do what you got to do for business, but I don't think it's what's best for the player. You know, something that's very frustrating about Sony is that, okay, think of Nintendo. They release a lot of games, right? You know, a lot more than Sony. But the thing is, Nintendo themselves, like Nintendo of Japan, you know, the people who make 3D Mario, who make Zelda, who make Animal Crossing and Mario Kart and Smash Brothers. That Nintendo doesn't really make that many more games than Sony does. Like, think about it. A gap between a game like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was 6 years. That's longer than the gap between Spider-Man 2018 and Spider-Man 2. That's longer than the gap between God of War and God of War Ragnarok. That's longer than the gap between Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. No, it takes Nintendo a long time to make games. It takes them just as long, if not longer, than every other, you know, AAA company. The thing is, Nintendo has a lot of partner developers who make smaller, spin-off, you know, side games in between their big releases. I mean, think about it. The last, you know, like, huge Mario game we got on the Switch was Mario Odyssey back in 2017. You know, we really haven't gotten, you know, another, like, huge 3D Mario game since then. Like, sure, we got Bowser's Fury, and of course we got the 2D Mario games like Mario Maker and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which are made by a different team. But every other Mario game that's released on the Switch was not made by, you know, Nintendo of Japan, you know, the main teams. They were all made by side companies, like Indie Cube, who make the Mario Party games, or companies like Camelot, who make the sports games, or even Ubisoft made 2 Mario games on the Switch. You know, all these Mario games that we play and there's so many come out, most of them are not made by the same people who make Mario Odyssey. It's like a completely different team of developers, and you don't really see that with Sony. If we think of Sony's big IP, you know, like God of War, the only people allowed to make God of War games are Sony Santa Monica. And yeah, of course, I know Ready at Dawn made some games back in like the PSP era, but that's an era we're no longer in. You know, we don't get, you know, spin-offs and side games made by partner developers anymore. Like, Sony does work with third-party companies. It's only really just to publish their games as exclusives, like we saw with Stellar Blade and Rise of the Ronin. We don't get, Sony leveraging their IP, giving them to smaller developers to make spin-offs to hold us over between their big releases. We didn't get like a smaller God of War game to hold us over between God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. One game we did get was Spider-Man Miles Morales, which was a smaller, side game between Spider-Man 2018 and Spider-Man 2, and people really loved that. We also got the same sort of thing with like Horizon Call of the Mountain on PSVR 2, which I know pretty much no one actually played. But that's important for companies like Nintendo, is to fund and publish games made by smaller and side developers, partners who put out games using their IP, their world famous IP. They give those out to smaller developers who put out games. Not all these games are going to be the highest quality, but it's a lot to play. And I think the overprotection of Sony's IP is the biggest reason why it seems like, we don't get a lot of games from Sony, or like the PS5 has no games. That's the reason why. It's not because Sony makes games slower than other companies. It's because the only games we really get from Sony are their major AAA mainline games made in-house by their heavy-hitting studios like Naughty Dog, in Santa Monica Studio, and Insomniac. And because of this, I've seen a lot of people praise Insomniac Games for being able to put out a large volume of titles compared to other studios. But the thing is, it shouldn't be Insomniac's job to put out so many games while every other studio takes forever. It should be their job to take their time in making the highest quality AAA games that they can. It should be the other developers, companies like Tosei, and companies like Bandai Namco, and all of the other AA small developers across the world to take PlayStation's IP and make these smaller spin-off games in between the big releases, so that we don't have to just go stretches of 5, 6, 7 years in between entries in the series we all love. Because you know what? It's fine to wait 5+ years for a new AAA game, because that's how long it takes to make AAA games. The problem is, when there's nothing else to play in between those 5 years, is when it might seem like the console has no games. We don't get any sort of spin-off games made by other companies, which is why we've seen so many IP from Sony die, whereas Nintendo has kept so many of their IP going. When Sucker Punch started making Ghost of Tsushima, obviously we shouldn't expect them to continue to support Sly Cooper and Infamous, because they've moved on to something else. They don't have time to be supporting their old IP. You know who does have the time to do all of that? All the other AA game developers across the world, who could have taken the reins from the major PlayStation studios who no longer have time to support their old IP. Sony could have easily handed off IP like Sly Cooper, or Sackboy, or Twisted Metal, or any of their other IP that they just don't use. They could have handed them off to, other developers, outside of Sony's in-house owned studios, and had them, make exclusives for PlayStation. And they don't do that. And I'm pretty sure the only reason they don't is because they're just so overprotective of their IP, and they don't want to give it to like a lowbrow studio who will make a low quality game and devalue Sony's brand. Which is fair, but at the same time, they secure games like fucking Foam Stars as exclusives. If you're putting your name on shit like that, you don't have a fucking excuse to just be keeping these IP dead when there's so many developers who could do such a good job with them. And I'm seeing the same cycle repeat with Astro Bot before our very eyes. This is another very charming IP that has a lot of potential to stretch into new genres. We could get a 2D platformer Astro Bot if, they would give that to another studio to, like make a side game in between, Astro's Playroom in 2020. We could have gotten like a 2D Astro platformer in like 2022. I'm sure they could have given it to like another studio who makes 2D platformers, like Namco or something, or like Tosei. Any of one of those companies could have made an Astro game while we wait for Team Asobi to make the next big, AAA 3D platformer Astro game. But no, they don't do that. What results is that we just keep getting, sequels years apart from each other, and not really a lot of diversity in the kinds of games we're playing. And I would love it if Astro Bot would have been the IP to finally break this mold and to really stretch out and be actualized into everything it could be. let's get an Astro 2D platformer. Let's get an Astro kart racer. Let's get an Astro party game. Let's get all the Astro games we can get, because Astro is amazing and we love him. And yeah, while oversaturation might not be a good thing, neither is starving players for years in between big releases. We know Sony has the fucking money to make spin-offs. You got fucking billions of dollars, not just in revenue, but in cash just laying around, which they only really want to spend on fucking acquiring new companies or whatever. Why not let other companies like Tosei, like Namco, like maybe Capcom, let other companies take a shot at your IP, revive your old dead IP, or give your current IP new sort of genres to sort of be fleshed out in. And like I said, the only reason they don't do that is to protect the quality of their brand, which they're already not doing a very good job at when you put your name on fucking foam stars. I really would have loved if I could bring my PS5 and I would have a new, charming, adorable, fantastic, loving party game, multiplayer game to play with my friends, instead of just playing the same old fighting games or making them watch me play a single player game. And a lot of you probably don't have that problem. I know a lot of you probably are content with playing, just multiplayer online games with your friends, or you just play Nintendo Switch games like Mario Kart and Mario Party, and you don't use your PlayStation for that. Or maybe you don't even play with your friends on console at all anyways, and so this doesn't affect you. But I know that I'm sure lots of other PlayStation fans would have loved a new kind of game rather than just a game that will be good and will get good reviews and everyone's gonna worship it like it's the second coming of fucking Crash Bandicoot. But I really think we could have done better. I don't like making negative videos like this. I used to enjoy making them a lot. I don't really like making them a lot anymore. Yeah, it's just a thought that I had. It's a frustration I had that in the end, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact, because this game's going to sell amazingly, and Sony is probably going to make Team Asobi make another 3D platformer in another 3 to 4 years. And that game's going to come out, and it's going to get amazing reviews. People are going to treat it like the third coming of Crash Bandicoot, and we're all going to love it. But nothing's going to change, and that's what's frustrating. So if you stayed through this entire thing to listen to my rambling, thank you so much. I know you probably do not agree with what I said in this video, and so I would still love it if you would tell me why I'm wrong, or why you're excited for this game more than you would a party game, or just what your thoughts are in general. I really want to talk about this subject with other people, because it's really hard to, really criticize a game that's so universally beloved. And so if you've got your thoughts that you want to share, please do that in the comments. But anyways, that's what I wanted to say, and so I'll talk to you later. Alright, bye.